The Sinaloa Federation, from humble origins to global notoriety. Welcome to this in-depth look at the Sinaloa Federation, an organization widely regarded as one of the most enduring and influential criminal networks in recent history. Across multiple decades, the Federation has adapted, expanded, and maneuvered through countless challenges, ultimately embedding itself in the global consciousness through news headlines, cultural depictions, and high-profile arrests. In this documentary, we'll examine the origins of the Federation, how it rose to power, the individuals who shaped its destiny, and the international implications of its far-reaching operations. We'll also explore how local communities, governmental institutions, and global media have been impacted by and responded to its presence, origins and historical background, early beginnings in rural Sinaloa geography and agriculture. The northwestern state of Sinaloa, Mexico, is known for its mountainous regions and fertile plains, conducive to growing various crops. In the mid-20th century, some of these agricultural ventures began to transition toward producing illicit plant-based products bound for markets across the border. Influential early figures, individuals like Pedro Aviles Perez, pioneered large-scale aerial smuggling methods, providing a blueprint for what would eventually become more sophisticated networks. This marked the first time small family-run enterprises started coordinating beyond local areas, sowing the seeds for a larger organization. Transition to organized syndicates, the Guadalajara Collective. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, Rafael Caro Quintero, and Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, among others, consolidated multiple regional groups. Operating out of Guadalajara, they forged alliances with counterparts in Central and South America, creating an elaborate web of contacts capable of shipping multi-ton loads of illicit contraband into the U.S. high-profile tipping point. The 1985 incident involving a U.S. agent triggered unprecedented law enforcement pressure. High-ranking arrests fractured the Guadalajara collective into smaller factions, some relocating to Tijuana, others to Ciudad Juarez, and the rest returning to Sinaloa, which eventually took on the name Sinaloa Federation or Pacific Association. Consolidation and rise to power, establishing the Federation key leaders. After the breakup of the Guadalajara network, emerging figures like Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, Hector Luis Palma Salazar, Ismael El Mayo Zambada, and Juan Jose El Azul Esparragoza took control of operations in Sinaloa. Each leader brought unique skills ranging from logistical masterminding to forging alliances with regional power brokers. Strategic expansion. By the early 1990s, the Federation had consolidated control in Sinaloa, Sonora, Durango, and other parts of northwestern Mexico. Its early success lay in coordinating efforts among smaller cells, setting a new bar for how illicit operations could be managed on a near-corporate scale. Early conflicts and alliances, rivalries, and territorial disputes. The Arellano Felix group in Tijuana became an early rival, sparking violence along the border. Simultaneously, the Federation made pragmatic alliances with various regional players to secure smuggling routes and distribution corridors. Influence on local communities. As the Federation acquired resources, its members often established connections with local officials or offered protection in exchange for cooperation. This dynamic would shape the narrative around corruption allegations for decades to come. Innovative smuggling methods, tunnels, and infrastructure, first discoveries. Authorities uncovered an early tunnel in 1989 between Agua Prieta, Sonora, and Douglas, Arizona. Investigators found lighting, airflow systems, and reinforced walls, signaling a new level of sophistication in clandestine travel. Super tunnels near Tijuana and Otay Mesa. Over subsequent decades, more advanced tunnels emerged, equipped with rails, ventilation, electric power, and even makeshift elevators. These super tunnels became an iconic symbol of the Federation's ingenuity in circumventing border security. Diversification of routes, maritime and aerial channels. Beyond subterranean passages, the Federation utilized aircraft, speedboats, and large cargo vessels to move contraband. Some networks reportedly partnered with local groups in Central America for maritime routes extending along the Pacific coastline. Use of technology. As surveillance methods intensified, so did the Federation's strategies, adopting encrypted communication devices, GPS trackers, and sophisticated counter-surveillance measures. Leadership and organizational structure. Federated model, horizontal versus vertical. The Sinaloa Federation is often characterized by a horizontal structure, with each faction semi-autonomous yet interdependent. This decentralized approach allows multiple leaders, often family-linked or regionally based, to coordinate smuggling, enforcement, and financial operations without relying solely on one supreme commander. Resilience through decentralization. When key leaders are arrested, lower-tier networks often continue functioning, ensuring that the overall framework survives the removal of high-profile figures. Prominent figures Joaquin El Chapo Guzman gained international notoriety through repeated arrests, sensational prison escapes, and eventual extradition to the U.S. His notoriety propelled the Federation into mainstream media, influencing pop culture references worldwide. Ismael El Mayo Zambada, regarded as a more discreet strategist, credited with maintaining alliances and forging deals that outlived various leadership shakeups. Juan Jose El Azu Esparragoza, known for low-profile diplomacy and negotiation skills, rumored to have passed away under ambiguous circumstances, though some believe he remains influential behind the scenes. Hector Luis Palma Salazar, once a close ally to Guzman, his arrest in the 1990s changed the Federation's power dynamics. The Chapitos, Ivan Arquivaldo, Jesus Alfredo, Ovidio, and Joaquin Guzman Lopez represent the next generation, taking a central role in operations after their father's extradition. Alliances and factions, Los Antrax, Los Rusos, and other groups, serving as enforcer units. These factions emerged to protect regional bosses and maintain territorial control. Internal schisms. Occasional splits, like the Beltran-Leyva break in 2008, led to new conflicts. Nevertheless, the core federation adapted, solidifying its strongholds and forging external alliances when beneficial. Expansion beyond Mexico, Central and South America, collaborations and corridors. The Federation forged ties with local networks in countries like Guatemala, Honduras, Colombia, and Ecuador. These alliances ensured a steady flow of illicit goods to and from regions where enforcement might be less rigorous. Operational presence, safe houses, airstrips, and hidden labs formed integral nodes in a supply chain that stretched from the Andean foothills to North American consumer markets. North America and overseas United States distribution hubs. Major U.S. cities, Los Angeles, Phoenix, Chicago, New York, became transshipment centers where local cells managed storage and distribution. Federal authorities have acknowledged dismantling numerous such cells over time, yet the Federation continues to adapt and reconstitute. Europe, Asia, and Africa. Reports indicate that certain cells engaged with international crime syndicates in Europe, sought precursor materials in Asia, and explored emerging markets in Africa. These expansions underline the Federation's ambition to operate on a truly global scale. Activities, markets, and economic impact. Primary contraband, illicit plant-based products. Early on, marijuana and poppy-derived products formed core revenue streams. Over time, law enforcement crackdowns and changing consumer preferences drove the Federation to diversify. Synthetic substances. As global demand for lab-based products expanded, so did the Federation's involvement in producing and distributing these items, capitalizing on minimal production costs and high market returns. Auxiliary crimes, arms trafficking. Large caches of firearms and specialized equipment have been seized by authorities, suggesting an extensive network for obtaining and distributing weapons. Money laundering. Through shell companies, real estate investments, and covert banking strategies, Federation members reportedly concealed vast sums of revenue. Extortion and enforcement. Some Federation-linked cells enforced protection fees, controlling territories through intimidation or collusion with local authorities. Economic and social repercussions. Local economies. Rural communities in Sinaloa and beyond often rely on these illicit economies, complicating local sentiments toward enforcement efforts. Public health concerns. The rise in synthetic substances has spurred community-level health crises. with addiction and overdoses impacting regions across North America. Alleged corruption and collusion accusations and high-profile trials testimonies in U.S. courts. During Joaquin Guzman's high-profile trial, witnesses alleged large-scale bribes to Mexican officials. U.S. prosecutors presented claims of collusion at top government levels, though many details remain contested. Genaro Garcia Luna case. The conviction of Mexico's former Secretary of Public Security on charges of collusion further stoked debate about how deeply the Federation had infiltrated official ranks. Controversial claims and denials, intelligence exchanges. Some cooperating witnesses claimed that Federation operatives provided information on rival networks to certain U.S. agencies in hopes of leniency. Official denials and partial data leaks left many questions unanswered, fueling persistent intrigue. Rivalries and internal struggles, conflict summits with other groups, Tijuana Juarez, and Gulf organizations. Decades-long rivalries over prime border crossings led to regional instability, shootouts, and repeated law enforcement crackdowns. Jalisco New Generation. One of the most formidable modern foes, CJNG continues competing fiercely for territories such as Jalisco, Veracruz, and the Bajío region, testing the Federation's resilience. Internal power shifts, Los Chapitos versus El Mayo Zambada factions. Within the Federation, occasional tensions flare between different leadership blocs, fueled by ambitions, generational differences, and shifting alliances. Fragmentation risks. Each high-profile arrest raises the possibility of renewed infighting or realignments with other groups. Media, culture, and public perception, popular culture representations, TV, films, and documentaries. Series like Narcos Mexico and numerous investigative documentaries highlight the Federation's storied past and dramatize the exploits of figures like El Chapo. Music and art. Corridos, Mexican folk ballads, often valorize or recount the Federation's legendary figures. In the U.S., rappers have referenced the group's leaders in lyrics, reflecting a global curiosity and fascination. Social commentary and controversy, glamorization versus realities. Critics argue that media portrayals risk romanticizing a lifestyle marred by fear, exploitation, and violence, while supporters of such media insist it brings awareness to systemic issues. Public sentiment in Mexico. In certain areas, local residents may quietly support certain criminal groups for economic reasons, complicating efforts by federal forces to eradicate syndicates, arrests, crackdowns, and persistence. Major operations and arrests. Operation Accelerator. U.S. authorities detained hundreds allegedly tied to the Federation, seizing significant assets. High-profile leaders. Repeated captures of Joaquin Guzman eventually led to his 2017 extradition to the United States, culminating in a highly publicized trial. Ongoing arrests. The apprehension of Ovidio Guzman Lopez and subsequent extraditions underscore the Federation's vulnerability at higher ranks, yet local cells remain resilient. Enduring adaptability, decentralized framework. Thanks to its structure, the Federation recovers from each crackdown by redistributing leadership roles to lower-profile members. Shifting focus. As enforcement intensifies on one revenue stream, the Federation often pivots to newer markets or substances, maintaining its revenue flow. Future outlook and key takeaways. Potential splintering versus ongoing unity, internal conflicts, rivalries between factions like those loyal to Los Chapitos versus El Mayo may spur bursts of violence or cause the network to fracture. Yet mutual necessity often binds these factions together when confronting external threats. Global demand. Illicit markets continue to exist worldwide, and the Federation's track record shows an ability to adapt to shifting consumer demands and enforcement patterns. Socio-political challenges, corruption and bribery. Rooting out collusion in any country remains a significant obstacle. Without systemic reforms, the Federation or new groups like it can maintain influence. Public health crisis. Communities bear the brunt of addiction and related social issues, prompting calls for international collaboration on prevention, treatment, and public education. Lessons in complexity, socio-economic dimensions. The Federation's entrenchment in rural regions often blends crime and survival, leaving local populations dependent on illicit economies. Policy implications. Cross-border initiatives aimed at reducing demand, incentivizing legal economic alternatives, and bolstering transparency may stand as the most enduring solutions. Conclusion: the Sinaloa Federation exemplifies a blend of resourcefulness, deep-rooted community ties, and relentless expansion that has enabled it to persist despite significant law enforcement efforts. Understanding its history, leadership, and global reach offers critical insights into the broader world of organized crime and highlights the multifaceted challenges faced by communities and governments alike. By delving into how the Federation emerged, adapted, and spread its influence across continents, we gain a clear perspective on the profound and often unsettling interplay between illicit demand, socio-political corruption, and the relentless pursuit of profit. As debates over policy enforcement and public health evolve, the Federation's story remains a central chapter in the ongoing narrative of transnational crime. Thank you for watching this educational overview of the Sinaloa Federation. If you found this content informative, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing for more documentaries on global issues and criminal networks. Disclaimer: this video is for educational and informational purposes only, based on publicly available data and historical records. It does not promote, endorse, or condone illegal activities. Viewer discretion is advised.